Don't let him in." That was all the nurse could whisper before the sound hit, the deep, rolling thunder of engines shaking the hospital walls. Outside, headlights cut through the rain as nearly 100 bikers surrounded the building, their jackets gleaming with the emblem of the Iron Brotherhood. Inside, a terrified black girl clutched her blanket, knowing the man who'd hurt her was coming. But what waited for him wasn't fear, it was justice. This is the story of a brotherhood that stood where no one else would. If this pulled you in, comment your city below. The night was quiet. Almost too quiet for the small town of Maple Ridge. Rain tapped softly against the windows of St. Clair's Hospital, a place that usually smelled of antiseptic and comfort. Inside, a young girl named Ariel Johnson, barely 16, lay in a hospital bed that felt more like a cage than a refuge. Her skin was bruised, her spirit dimmed, but her eyes, those wide, terrified eyes, still held the faint spark of survival. Ariel had grown up in a home where silence was safer than truth. Her mother worked double shifts, often too tired to notice the storm that brewed behind closed doors. Her stepfather, a man who wore charm like a mask, had turned their home into a battlefield. Words became weapons, then fists followed. But what made it worse was how the world looked away. Teachers ignored the signs. Neighbors whispered but never intervened. Because in this town, people didn't question men like him, and girls like Ariel learned to endure. The night before, she had finally escaped. A desperate dash through the rain, barefoot and bleeding, until she found a payphone outside an abandoned diner. She dialed a number she'd seen once on a flyer, a biker hotline for abuse victims. It sounded strange, almost unbelievable, but she had nothing left to lose. A rough voice had answered. Calm, steady, reassuring. "You're safe now. We've got you." Now, as she lay in the hospital room under the thin blanket, she tried to believe those words, but fear lingered in every shadow. Because he would come for her, she knew it. And when he did, no locked door or security guard could stop him. But what Ariel didn't know was that somewhere out there, engines were already roaring to life, men and women she'd never met, preparing to do what no one else ever had, protect her, no matter the cost. Outside, the storm had grown heavier, wrapping the hospital in sheets of rain. Inside, Ariel couldn't sleep. Every creak in the hallway made her flinch. The nurses had been kind, but kindness couldn't silence the fear that had followed her here. She stared at the clock, 3:14 a.m., and tried not to think of the man who used to stand outside her bedroom door, whispering threats through the wood. Across town, miles away, a group of bikers gathered inside a dimly lit garage. The sign above the entrance read, "The Iron Brotherhood." They weren't a gang, despite what outsiders thought. They were veterans, mechanics, ex-cops, and fathers, men and women who had seen enough of the world's cruelty to decide they wouldn't stand by anymore. Their leader, a broad-shouldered man named Hawk, held Ariel's trembling voice in his mind. "He's coming," she'd said. Just 2 words, but they'd carried enough pain to shake even the toughest among them. Within minutes, calls were made, engines revved, leather jackets zipped. They didn't ask for permission, didn't wait for a court order or police escort. They just rode, 97 strong, headlights cutting through the rain like a wall of light and thunder. Back at St. Clair's, the staff had been notified that Ariel's stepfather might try to find her. They promised tighter security, but their eyes told another story. Unease, uncertainty, fear of confrontation. For men like him, charm was his disguise, authority his weapon. He could smile his way through locked doors. And he was already on his way. Ariel felt it before anyone said it aloud. A presence, a shadow moving closer. A nurse tried to reassure her, but her hands trembled as she checked the door latch. Down the hallway, an elevator dinged softly, and then the sound came. Not footsteps, not voices, but something deeper, like a storm breaking open. The bikers had arrived. Engines roared outside the hospital entrance as rain splashed off chrome and steel. Security guards froze, unsure what to do. Then Hawk stepped forward, his boots echoing against the wet pavement. He handed a nurse his jacket and said calmly, "We're here for her." Inside, patients peeked from their rooms as the bikers formed two lines through the corridor, massive, silent, unwavering. The sound of rain mixed with the low growl of idling engines outside, like distant thunder waiting for a cue. When Ariel saw them, men and women in black leather, patches gleaming with the emblem of the Iron Brotherhood, she didn't know whether to cry or breathe. They didn't say much. They didn't need to. Their presence spoke louder than any promise. You're safe now. But the safety was fragile. Because at that very moment, a car door slammed in the parking lot. A man in a pressed jacket stepped out, smirking as he straightened his collar. The hospital lights reflected off his pale, confident face. He'd done this before, walked into rooms, twisted stories, made people doubt the truth. In his world, control was his right. He didn't know who was waiting for him this time. The automatic doors opened with a hiss. Conversations stopped. The air thickened. Every biker turned toward the entrance. Hawk glanced down the hallway toward Ariel's room. "He's here," someone whispered. And in that moment, the hospital, usually filled with the sound of monitors and distant voices, fell completely silent. The stepfather took one step inside. 97 pairs of eyes turned toward him. What happened next would test the meaning of justice itself. He walked into the hospital like he owned it, smug, confident, and certain the world still bowed to him. The same arrogance that had silenced Ariel for years was now on full display as he strode toward her room. The nurses shrank back, unwilling to meet his eyes. He straightened his jacket, rehearsing the lies he'd tell the staff, that she was confused, unstable, overreacting. It had worked before. It always worked. But tonight, the rules had changed. As he rounded the corner, the hallway came into view and stopped him cold. The bikers stood shoulder to shoulder, a wall of leather and steel, faces unreadable. 97 of them, every one of them silent. He tried to step forward, but Hawk moved first. Not with fists or threats, but with calm authority. "She's safe," he said quietly. "You're not going near her." For the first time, the man hesitated. He glanced around, expecting someone, anyone, to intervene on his behalf. But no one did. The nurses stood behind the bikers. The guards did too. Even the hum of hospital machines seemed to fade. Hawk didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "You hurt a child. You don't get to scare her again." The stepfather's smirk faltered. His charm evaporated. For once, he was the one being watched, the one cornered, powerless, exposed, and as he turned and walked out, the thunder of engines rose again outside. Justice didn't roar that night. It rumbled, steady, united, and unstoppable. Dear audience, where are you watching from? Drop your city name in the comments. The next morning, the rain had stopped. Sunlight spilled through the hospital windows, washing away the shadows that had haunted the night. Ariel sat up in her bed, weak but finally breathing without fear. Outside, the parking lot was empty now. Only faint tire marks remained. A silent reminder of the army that had come for her when no one else would. Her stepfather was gone. Arrested later that day after witnesses finally spoke up. Fear had silenced them once, but courage, it seemed, was contagious. The story spread quickly. 97 bikers protect abused black girl from her stepfather. It was everywhere. On TV, in headlines, across social media. For many, it was just another viral story. But for Ariel, it was more than that. It was proof that kindness could be louder than cruelty, that strangers could become shields. That justice didn't always wear a badge. It could wear leather, carry scars, and ride through the night when hope seemed lost. Members of the Iron Brotherhood visited her weeks later, not as heroes, but as friends. They told her one thing she'd never heard before. "You're not alone anymore." Ariel grew stronger. She started school again. She began to smile, slowly, cautiously, but for real this time, and somewhere out there, the bikers still ride, watching, listening, ready for the next call, because racism, abuse, and silence thrive when people look away. The question is, When it's your turn to see injustice, will you ride too? Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more powerful true stories and heartfelt tales.